So, you want to go over replays?
Yeah, dude.
Let's go over something short and sweet. Which I think I knew. I think I knew how to hold, and apparently I don't. I need to make you lead.
Right
Promote
click
to
me.
obvious. Yeah.
Perfect. So it looks like you're going to be attacked by mosquitoes here.
Hmm. Now.
So how have the games been going since the previous session?
Actually, I think rather good. Camera control and injects I've gotten, I think, better. My overall MMR, I think the baseline I rotate around has went up. With control groups, I'm having more difficulty. But with the injects, I think a lot of my problem earlier, I had a lot of variance in my games, which I think were related to the injects. So for the last 2 weeks, I'm feeling that like the games have been like my MMR hasn't been like fluctuating as much as it had before. It's risen and then it's holding a bit more steady. I think a lot of my games were decided by on like how good I was injecting or not, and that was really throwing me up and down, up and down. And now
Yeah,
games feel a bit more predictable.
that's good.
And here I see that this is like a Ling drone pool, the ultimate all in, which I thought I knew how to hold, which is basically to rally the drones away, make the Lings, and then rally back and fight. But he made like four, like this I haven't seen before, that he makes like 4 spines. And
Yeah.
I got a bit flustered there.
Okay, versus 12 pooling spine cheese. So this is something that is a very powerful cheese. As you said, it is the most committed cheese that a player can do. So what you want to do, and we'll go back to the moment where you see the drones coming across, because that's the key piece of information. So you see drones and links coming across the map. With this second overlord, you see almost all of their drones. So this is basically a game of how many minerals have you mined and how many spines can you afford versus how many minerals the opponent has mined and how many spines they can afford. You have a big investment here that could all be spent into spine. So that's the crucial thing that I think caused you to die this game. That if you cancel this base, you can afford 3 to 4 more spine crawlers. That would be the procedure. You see the drones, cancel your base, and then you can make as many spines as possible behind your worker line. Since they pulled at least, what do we see here, 9 drones, you could make 6 to 7 spines, and that would be a wise expenditure. This is a good situation to think about the DPS of the units in play. So spine is the highest DPS, early game piece. Ling, second highest. Queen, third highest. And then drone is fourth. So that would be your priority for spending money against this particular cheese, I would say. Spines with your minerals. If you have larva, make some lings. If you have minerals on top of that, make a queen or two. This is a totally committed cheese, so you can just go ham with the spine crawlers. If you made, look at your worker count, 19. If you made 6 spines, you would have a worker lead because they're going to spend some of their mineral into spines. So let's imagine this base was cancelled, and then as soon as your pool finishes, you make a bunch of spines. Keep mining from the base. I would say this particular defense is going to be maybe less reliable than making a bunch of spines. If you want to try this, you want to be focusing the spines with the drones or catching them on the ramp. As soon as they get to the ramp, all of your drones will be there ready to take the fight and prevent them from building the spines in the first place. Those are your two options here. You have the passive defensive approach, which is I'm just going to keep mining, I'm going to cancel my base, I'm going to make as many spines as possible behind my worker line.
Doesn't he just attack with lings and doesn't just kill my workers? Like I can't fight when he has lings and I don't.
You mean right if you were to take the aggressive approach?
No, here if I let these drones keep mining, I make some spines. He
The
just comes into my mineral lines and kills me. No?
the opponent has to defend their spines with their lings. That's kind of the purpose of the lings. So this particular build, as we said with the DPS, the spine is the most effective piece. The lings are pretty effective, but mainly the lings are looking to defend these spine crawlers. That's their primary purpose. If they go into your worker line, you box that group of workers and then you click it to a different mineral patch, kind of like you would do against Reaper. You just try and keep the drones away and buy time for your own spines and your own lings. Once your lings pop, you have something to fight their lings. Once your spines are finished, you can gradually move them up to fight the opponent's spines.
And I'm basically relying on the fact that I have a number advantage in the spines.
Yes. And lings and drones. I think there's a YouTube video that I have where I stop this with a drone pull. So the other option would be, I'll kind of show it by timing. So the lings and drones are coming across the map. You would pull all of your drones right now if you wanted to do that drone pull approach, and mineral walk them here to this base so that they stack up. And then once you're on this ramp, you'll have 19 drones. So all of your drones versus 9 drones and 6 lings, which you can often surprise the opponent. This kind of follows Miyamoto Musashi's principle: when the opponent is about to strike, strike first. The opponent's strike happens here on the creep. You can see if you select their units, the command, they have a move command up to the main, and then an attack command on the creep. This is pretty common. So if you were to be on the ramp while they were going up, they would be move commanding into you, and you can get a lot of damage off and surprise them. So that's another thing. So I'll put the quote, and the opponent's about to strike. Strike first. And then pull drones to fight at the ramp to take initiative. That's one option. I would say still canceling the base every time you see a bunch of drones, regardless of whether you're going to fight with workers or not. Cool. I think we cover the basics of that. It's the same. If you're going to fight the spines with your drones, that's another option. It would be 4 drones per building, same as against Cannon Rush.
Cool. Okay, let's take a look at an interesting ZVT.
Oh, nice Masters player.
Yeah, I finally got, for a while I had like a really, like I saw someone, I was playing someone who was a master, I got frazzled and I was playing really bad games because every time I was like, oh shit.
Mm-hmm.
And with time, I think that's over already. I feel more confident now against them, though I think I still lose more than I win, but it's getting better.
That's good. Yeah, I've definitely felt the same thing when I was Diamond getting into Masters, and then when I was Masters getting into GM. The first time you face those players of the higher league, like your win rate is so low that it's like, oh, I'm doomed from the beginning. Oh shit. All right. So this is a build that is increasing in popularity. Beyond does Reaper openings, Thermal does it really often. So this will be a game where we're focused on the game clock. let's see. It's with gas, so it's going to be Reaper. A good mental time to memorize. So I'll do a CBT section for your notes. 230 to 240 is first Reaper in base for a macro build. Let's look. Wait, what?
Yeah, this game started odd.
Okay, so they're marine cheesing you with the gas. Okay. I'll leave that note because it's good to know. So for this map, if the Reaper came in at 210 to 220, it's proxy Reaper. Spine ASAP, Roach Warren. Okay, so this is a different cheese, but we can still talk about how to deal with this. The marine bunker business. What did your first overlord do? Let's go back in time a little bit. This is a very creative cheese location. I would have missed this as well, I think. So it looks like you're gonna scout it here. So now you know it's a cheese. First thing, Roach Warren, as soon as you can. Spine is good, I like that choice. Making lings with your larva. Queen in the main. Queen at the natural I would skip, mainly because you don't have cream connection between your bases, and it's going to be really hard to keep that mineral investment alive. You may be able to sneak it away.
I find, by the way, you were talking also on the show and now about the Reaper thing. It really is the hardest thing is to know how econ they are behind it. That's driving me like.
Well, one of the limitations of Reapers is they cannot shoot up. So, let's say it was an in-base 3 racks Reaper. This first Overlord, let's do an imagination. There was nothing here. You saw nothing at this natural. You just fly into the main. It's worth sacking the Overlord to know what their one base cheese is like. So on any map, sending your first Overlord forward, just to peek to see if they have a second base, and if there's no second base, just fly direct into the main. And if it was in base, you would see the 3 barracks. But in this case, you did sneak the queen, which was good. And now you're making roaches. I'll put this as a note because it's really easy to forget when you're getting cheesed. As your natural is being killed by proxy marine, make a couple extra overlords. That's one of the changes from HOTS to Legacy is hatcheries give 6 supply as opposed to the previous 2. So when you lose a hatch, it's like losing most of an overlord, whereas before it wasn't quite as impactful on that front. And additionally, roach production requires a lot of overlords, so you would think as your roach warren is about to finish up, make maybe 2 to 3 overlords. Okay. Ideally you would keep that roach alive. Ravager is a good counter to this sort of cheese. Bunch of lings. I would say if you're gonna make this many lings, as opposed to queens, drones, and roaches, sending them at the opponent would be good in most cases. This is a very strange case of a game. So it seems like your game plan is to creep out, use the spine. Spine's outrange bunkers, so that's cool. I would still place a priority. Wait, are you making drones? You are. Okay, good. I was going to say, you still want to saturate your main fully, which you are doing.
Yeah, I think now, like, I wasn't sure how much, like, if I want to break out, how much is still there. I think maybe if I would, like, send a couple of links, just like 1 or 2 links ahead, I would be able to take my natural back sooner.
Yeah, so one thing that's a general rule, if you have an abundance of army, and the opponent retreats, send the army. Well, let's look at the active forces tab right now. Yeah, So the opponent has 500 minerals in army. You have 1200 and 275 gas. So this would be a situation where you think about like the water from a river that's being pent up by a dam. They basically dammed you up with these bunkers and they put you on one base. So you are filling up with a bunch of value, and then once you break the dam, you rush forward and strike at them. So that would be kind of the thinking in this situation. And then you can expand behind that. You could even double expand. That would be okay because this is a really long map. And since they cheese the opener, they're likely not going to have another huge follow-up, especially since you see there's a base and a tank. So that would be a great situation where they went from being cheesy to defensive, so you can be defensive and then greedy.
I don't know if I'm not decisive enough, but a lot of times of situation like this, when I hit back, my attacks are usually like held.
It's going to depend, and part of that is representing what you've put into the game and comparing that with what the opponent has. So if you have Ling Speed and Ravagers, your army is pretty fast, so it's not a huge risk to run across the map and kind of poke at their front, and it'll allow you to see what they're up to. Like with this Ling Ravager, you can see, alright, 3 depots, a factory in the wall, 2 bunkers, and 2 tanks. This is about as turtley as Terran can be. So this would be my signal to grab the gold base, which you're getting, drone as hard as you can, keep injecting and keep spreading creep. One thing that will happen as you develop as a player, as everyone develops as a player, is the more you get into that situation and get to practice which responses work and which don't, the less downtime you have in thinking about what you need to do in the situation. It'll just kind of come naturally because you've been there before. So this would be a build where I would say, you've probably never been here before. I've never been in this situation where they go 2 racks marine bunker into hyper defensive with tanks. It's very unique, and that's one of the cool things about StarCraft is the opponent can put you in a unique scenario and you have to kind of think on the fly, but also learn after it with the replay analysis, which we get to do here. So yeah, I would say all these extra roaches, once you found out that it was a heavy tank-based play, would just focus on droning and getting into upgrades. The layer's kind of alright, but I would be worried about like a big marine tank timing after the tanks. Mutas could be good. I would say mutas or upgrades would be your main go-to. Gold base is saturated, taking gases. So you've been behind in workers for a pretty long time. It's nice that you got that base lifted and moved away. I would have a trigger here. As soon as you see the hidden base, grab a 4th. That would be a knee-jerk. Looks like you're doing that. So it seems like you're making most of the correct moves. It's just a unique situation, so it happens a little bit slower than it needs to. And that's okay. Looks like you're going melee upgrades, Bane speed, Spire. Main base is mining out. You could have transferred some workers from the main to the 3rd. Your injects are looking so much better than last time. Good job.
Thanks. I still lose this one, but...
Well, if you think about it, you didn't lose because of the injects. This was a situation where they hit you with an early technical, and you didn't capitalize on the advantage you created. So your advantage was army value. Their advantage was being up in bases. So what you needed to do was, as soon as they salvage a bunker, or as soon as you have some Ling Roach Ravager, you bust through and then you bump their wall and see what their wall looks like. And as soon as you saw the wall, you could say, alright, it's hyper defensive. I'm either going to go fast into Muta, or I'm going to expand and drone really hard and take upgrades. Oh, nice Bane run by. Actually, that puts you ahead in workers.
Yeah. I think one of the reasons, something that happens, I think the reason I lose this game soon is I really like that they added something for the corruptors to do.
Yeah.
That makes them so much more of a satisfying unit to make.
Yeah. Have some utility now. Getting Hive. Inject, yeah. Where'd your other queens go? Maybe they were killed.
Yeah, I think most of them. When there was that, what the hell was it? It's 4 Banshee Raven tank attack.
Mm-hmm.
Standard, basically.
Yeah.
So here I think is my biggest mistake, where
you trade the army at the planetary.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is a situation where I've had to kind of learn the hard way. And that is, if you, let's say, versus 4th base planetary Terran, the main fights should generally not be taken at the planetary. What is the win condition against Terran? There are a few, but you can say Terran runs out of gas, money, or you get on top of production. Which, the key area for securing that condition is attacking into here and then controlling this ramp. If you control this ramp and you can kill the units on either side, you've won the game. The planetary is kind of the location where Terran is going to take the most favorable trade, because it's a really big, beefy, armored target that shoots back. And if they have their army on top of that, it's going to be very expensive to break it. So I would say, with the situation you were in, you had a pretty nice army. And you did a great Bane run by before. I would say it's a move that you can just do over and over again. So if you postured your army, this is going to require maybe 2 separate control groups. You posture your army here, you kind of poke and get the opponent's attention, and you run some Banes into this worker line again. That will be an option. Or you can take the more defensive approach, which would be, I have 150 supply in army, my hive is almost done, I know that ultras are strong, so I'm going to put 1 ling in each path. 1 here, 1 here, 1 here, and 1 there. So you can see if the Terran army moves out, and then just take a fight on creep if the opponent attacks you, and get into ultras. Because ultras coming out is going to be really, really strong. Right now you're still on tier 2, which is pretty strong, but not nearly as effective. What's that?
Here I finally got hold of myself and started making army groups again, so I can hotkey the mutas separately from the rest of the army.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, it seems like whenever a player is a bit more taxed, like they're pressured harder by aggression or put in unfamiliar situations, a lot of the older habits will come out, like using F2 or whatever that button is for you to select all stuff.
And here I think this is just like I think I might have been able to rally. I don't know, but here I just get pulled apart.
GG though. That's a very special, unique cheese we saw from this opponent. Normally, so the most common case, if they're proxying bunkers, bunkers and barracks, it'll usually be full racks Marine. If you can beat the Marines, you can push back and kill the Terran. If the Marines don't fight you, and the contain just crumbles, it's still good to send the units across the map to make sure they're not cutting too many corners and to get a thorough read. So this is, I'll put a Sun Tzu quote by that. Agitate him and ascertain the pattern of his movement is the phrase.
This is a ZVZ game, which I was really unsure about why I lost. Much more standard game. I really don't like this map in ZVZ. Because it feels like there's a coin flip at the beginning. If he goes for the gold, so I've been sending my 14 drone to scout, and if I see that he's taken the gold, I go free hatch immediately. But then if he goes super aggressive, I'm in trouble. If I don't have like 100%. If I take the gold and if I went for an aggressive pool, then I'm screwed.
So it's less coin flippy if you understand the primary defensive move against cheese and how to counter greed in a variety of ways. So the first thing we'll cover, I'll put this in the ZVZ section. So Apotheosis, in general, 2 queens, hold position on ramp into your main, blind after first inject. This will help you on pretty much every map. It's something that I've personally been working on that keeps you safe, especially when you don't get the Overlord Scout in time. So this game, the opponent's going hatch first on the gold, which is kind of on the greedy side of things. But if they were to be going for an early cheese, that will be the first thing that you want to do on your checklist of defense, is make queens, take ling speed, and then put your queens on this ramp and your lings on the ramp. That's the main place to take fights against cheese. If you're against greed, your solution is going 3 hatch. I would say by reaching for more larvae than the opponent, you want to make sure your ling speed is pretty fast. Let's see how you spend that. Going Bane Nest. So I would go ling speed here. This is a really important map for ling speed, just so you have a really mobile scouting piece in the game. Baneling would be a pretty passive one that's not going to help you if they're going for Roach, as they are this game. The Zergling is the least larva efficient unit, so if larva is your primary advantage, then that's probably the best unit to make.
From this solution going free hatch, I'm more worried about them attacking me. It's not that I'm planning to. Maybe it would be better to, after I make this, like ling swarm them. But
yeah, well, the way that you mitigate that is you attack them with a bunch of ling bane. So that would be the response. I see my opponent going for a gold natural expansion, so I'm gonna take 3 hatch, gas, pool, and then make more ling bane than the opponent can make. Because if you think about 2 base mineral saturation, you can't spend all the money on lings. There isn't enough larva even if you're injecting perfectly.
Yeah.
So with the 3rd hatch, that can be your edge. So I would say to optimize this response, you would say versus gold natural, 3 hatch is okay. Take gas, pool, ling speed, pull one worker off gas, Bane Nest, inject all bases.
I've seen you do that
Blood
when you
links.
take like just one worker off gas.
Yeah. The reason you do that is because with the setup that you have, if it's 3 hatches, you want to be making a lot more lings. The Bane is kind of an accent on it. Like if you're not making Banes to kill the opponent directly, then 2 out of 3 has a better balance of minerals to gas. It also allows you to drone more effectively off the back of it.
Do I need a third queen? I'm assuming so.
Yeah, you would think about like 1 queen per hatchery as getting full value for the larva production of the hatchery. Definitely, yes. And you have the money for it too. A good time to go for an attack is around 32 to 34 supply. Make 2 overlords, then floodlings. This will normally happen as your link speed is finishing up anyway. It's a good checkpoint for putting units into the game. If you, let's say you did that, and you got to this area, you could probably just control this area between the bases and beat the opponent. In situations where they have a slow unit like roaches, you want to kind of utilize your movement speed advantage. So you could strike at this. If this army is too strong, you could run into the main. If the gold base is exposed, you could strike the gold base. Or you could drone behind it, and then if the opponent moves out, you can retreat. So flooding links, sending them across, that's cool. That's quite a few.
Yeah, I think I timed it wrong though with the +1 attack.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would like running into the main straight away. But I think if you timed it better, if you want to have a big Zergling base attack with no upgrades, the 2 overlords at 32 to 34 supply and then attacking immediately would be good. Or kind of like you said, timing it with the melee, if you wanted that to be your timing. You kind of hit between the two, so it didn't end up being very strong.
But even here, I'm still like on, and that's why like I thought, okay, that was a failed attack. I'm still on even supply. I'm getting my upgrades. We are equal upgrade at the moment.
So here we can...
I try not to take a bad fight here.
We can do a quick lesson on roach positioning and setting up concaves. So roach versus roach. This is a general thing. It's on Apotheosis, but the map is not important. So you have a gold base that's toward your opponent. The main point of contention for you to control is this ramp right here. The other ramp is a little bit deeper into your territory. The opponent is less likely to take that. Additionally, you would want to have an overlord like here to see the army moving out. You want to have your roaches in an arc at the high ground so that you take the natural concave and they have to attack at a bad angle. So right now, you have 9 fewer roaches, but you have high ground. If you don't leverage your high ground, they get to come up here and fight you at even ground, which is going to be bad. So you want to be resting right here at the top of the ramp, ready to strike at them. And then you can use your drone lead, you have 46 workers to 34, to produce roaches and then take the game.
Yeah, I respond just a bit too slowly.
Mm-hmm. And then another thing, so we'll say command high ground of ramps and establish an arc. And then box half of roaches to get a concave. That's one of the main things that will transition you from Diamond into Masters 3-2-1, which is getting in the habit of seeing where your army is, boxing half of it, and clicking it to the side, so that you're going to get a better trade for your units. If we zoom in on this roach trade, notice the back line of your roaches. You're going to have some roaches that aren't participating. In this type of situation, you want every unit to be fighting. So if we look at that, you had like, I don't know, 8 roaches that weren't fighting. The opponent also doesn't have their full roach force fighting, but they had comparatively more shooting. So if you had the ramp and you were contesting that location, it would have been better for you. And then if you realize you're taking a bad trade, box half the roaches, click them away from your army, and then you can A move into them and you'll take a more natural concave. Yeah, so this would be something that we can practice in a custom game. I've done this with a few students and it's quite beneficial to just get some reps and get a feel for what it looks like.
I obviously haven't perfected it. It's something I actually I do really like. I like those roach on roach battles when you have to like play that positional game. It's and not a lot, like a lot of people don't appreciate it. It's not like a very visible micro thing, but I think it's a really cool one.
So do you want to go through the rest of this game, or do you want to just practice that situation right there?
Yeah, let's practice. I think that's fine.
Okay. So I will take the opponent around here. Oh, did you leave?
Yeah. Sorry, I thought you went. So I'll go back in, or how do we do this?
Yeah, load the replay again, and then we can take control at that point.
Okay.
Like 4 minutes in or so. Opening build. This opponent's build is so greedy.
I mean, seriously though, if I go for, I'm not even talking about 13-12, 14-14, how does he hold that?
He doesn't. That's a part of the poker game that we were talking about in the Avila talk show I tried to bring up, which is a lot of players will make a gamble in the early game that's going to put them in a great situation in certain spots and they're dead in others. So this would be one where the opponent is taking a greedy gamble where if they don't get punished, then they can get a really nice swell of roaches for like a early mid-game timing. But if it's one of the earliest cheeses, they're pretty much dead. And that's kind of what they have to accept with their build order. Some people are okay with that, like they don't care about playing safe, they want to make some big moves. Okay, so...
Are those Johnny or Timmy's? I think it's Timmy's. Yeah.
Okay, so I will take control of Dream. You are Iceman. Ready?
Yeah.
So you're getting the arc on the high ground. Oh, this player. They use F2. Okay. Oh no! You have the ramp, please. Look at that. So much better. And then you're making roaches. Oh, this person set up camera location hotkeys though. So I'll back up a little bit and let you get your roaches together, and then you'll practice boxing in half, separating your units.
Oh, come here, guys.
So what would be a concave you could take? You could think about, in any given situation, pre-splitting your units. It's going to be easier than trying to split during the fight. So just give me a really bad thing to attack into. I'm gonna get you. Yeah, see? 2 parts and you're going to take a way better trade. So a lot of times the player with fewer roaches can take the more efficient trade just by virtue of seeing where the chokes are. So you see this choke? I'm actually taking the better trade. So if you get a bad angle, you can fall back and try and get a better one. Yep, so now you have more. Fall back. You have defender's advantage, you don't need to take that. So you can fall back to the next choke, which would be between your hatchery and that obstacle below. Fall back and box in half.
Yeah.
There you go. And then you can also scoot up too. So if you see that you have roaches running around in the back, scoot them up so they're all firing.
Yeah, because they tend to stay at maximum range.
Yeah. Try and take the top of the ramp again and get pre-split, because that's where the point of contention is.
Is there any way, I reckon there isn't, but is there any way to make them know that when they come out of the hatch, they come out fighting and not A-moving?
No. You can't give attack commands to eggs. That's part of the problem. So one thing that can be useful to do is be mindful of where your rally location is from your hatches. So you probably want your rally position to be like here. I can't ping to you, lol. At the top of your ramp, where your roaches are, basically. So that's kind of where they're moving by default. Oh wow, amazing. Okay, so what if I move around to the left side? Can you see me with your...
I need to know that, that's for one thing.
Yeah, so having a ring of vision with overlords outside your base allows you to have your roaches in the right place at the right time. That would be something to focus on.
One here, one there. Your queen should need to... Don't stop injecting! See, something about the control group is really uncomfortable for me. I don't know why, it's just...
Which one, the army control group?
Yeah, setting it up, because once I have the army, I'm fine with using it. But setting up when they're larvae, and then like it always kind of feels a bit iffy to me.
Mm-hmm. Like hotkeying your eggs.
Yeah.
That's something that I think should improve with practice. You're using the core, so... How long have you been using the, like, all army hotkey versus control groups?
I've been using the all army hotkeys ever since it was made part of the game.
Yeah, so I think part of it's just practice of habit. Because if you've been using all army, you don't have to hotkey your eggs. So it's something that's practiced a bit less. Oh. Oh god. Please. I'm going to the other side. Make sure all the roaches are firing, so you can scoot up. Scoot up. Yeah. So with the roach micro, you can see when the volley of all their shots go, and then you scoot between those volleys.
Yeah. How's it go? When you outnumber them 10 to 1, you surround them.
Yep.
If I remember my...
Sons do. Okay, so you've had some practice defending, now move across the map and attack me. And try and come in with a good formation and make sure all your roaches are firing.
Like, in that kind of situation, should I set my rally point forward, or should I set my rally point near my hatches, and then hotkey them and just count on my army, just attack moves, that it will send them back to where the correct location is?
Personally, I don't really change my rally point over the course of the game, because if you're binding your eggs, then it's going to rejoin your army anyway. And it also gives you something to defend in case the opponent counterattacks you. If you just have roaches coming out that are in your base, you don't want to hotkey all of them. nice.
Oh, that went bad.
Oh no. Oh, you need roach upgrades.
I somehow, this is something that happens to me, and I'm not sure why. I somehow sometimes unset my hatcheries.
Yeah,
I don't know if it's something,
sometimes they'll get bound with your army.
and they vanish for some reason. I think I'm really doing something a bit wrong there. Jeez, you have a lot of stuff. Now, see, I missed my injects during the fight. That's what happens.
Well, you're also talking and like thinking about stuff too. Injects aren't really the focus right now so much as
Yeah,
the roach
I'm
movement.
remaking stuff.
The attack upgrades are super important in Roach versus Roach as well, and a lot of your timing should be as those finish up. So +1 ranged attack, and then +2 ranged attack, and then Carapace. Because that's part of...
Is Carapace really important in Roach versus Roach? I thought it was more like just an attack thing.
Attack is good. The Carapace helps a lot once Hydras come into play. So if you're getting into the late game, it's going to be good. So usually...
I think... Okay.
Usually the order is +1 ranged attack, +2 ranged attack, +1 Carapace. And then if you're still playing ranged, you could go +3 ranged attack.
A replay, if it would have kept watching, I have an engagement later where he has Roach Hydra, and I have Roaches, and I lose a fight that I really didn't understand how I lost. I'm assuming that maybe that's part of it.
Yeah. Hydras are very upgrade dependent. So another thing to think about too is Ravagers are higher DPS than Roaches. So if your opponent has a Ravager lead and the Ravagers are protected, they have a DPS advantage. So that's something you can do kind of between fights, is just increase your Ravager count, try and spend your gas. Because even before Biles, a Ravager has higher attack speed than a Roach, and it deals the same damage.
When it comes to Roach, like Ravager, do you try to keep your Ravagers behind or at the front? Because if I keep them behind, it's like better for the DPS during the fight, but I have a lot of difficulties getting them to do the Biles properly. They just start like running around and getting blocked and doing the Ravager dance.
Yeah, so you have to think about what your Biles are trying to accomplish. Usually you want to do it to control space, rather than to necessarily fire at their Roaches. Like in a situation here, what I could do with the Ravagers is, instead of trying to bile your Roach army, I could put some Biles right here, and then attack your army and try and bait you into it, which also prevents me from doing a silly Ravager dance. So that's one option. Another option is to like hit strategic targets with the Ravagers. Ravagers are also longer range, so you can have more units firing at a given time by having Ravagers in the back line. I think with this many Ravagers and an upgrade lead, I can attack uphill into you if you don't have Ravagers. Yeah.
I was a 200 supply, it's not that I could have...
Yeah, so that was just the Ravager DPS advantage. So if you get into that situation where maybe you have 200 supply and you have a bunch of Roach, you want to trade some of them out. So you can either try and take an army fight and build Roaches behind it, or you could steal some units and say, send them to my 4th base. Like 7 to 14 Roaches is a good harassment number to send at someone's base. That's a pretty big threat. It can kill spines pretty easily and kill a bunch of workers. It's a big hassle to deal with. Okay, so I think we covered most of what I wanted to in that. So I'll put some notes. Use Ravager to increase army DPS. Keep running upgrades. +1 ranged, +2 ranged, +1 carapace. And then if maxed 200, 200 with Roach, trade some out and remake better units. And that would be Ravager, or Hydra, or Lurker, or Ultra, or Muta. Cool. Do you want to go over the rest of that game? You said there was an engagement you didn't understand.
No, I think pretty much like upgrades probably and Hydras.
So that's 2 comments in the chat so far of people who appreciate your accent. I think it sounds cool.
Thank you. I didn't know it was streaming. Hello, everybody.
Oh, I know this guy. Giuseppe. He's a Masters player on NA.
Really? Cool. Yeah. I think I know what this one was.
Cool. Hatch first.
Yeah, but at the third because Fireball was blocking me.
Yeah, that's correct. Oh, nice, and you get the other hatch. Queen, Lings, Overlord, drones. Cool. The early game looks pretty much perfect on your end. Getting a probe. See Chrono Boost on the Warp Gate Research. Twilight Council. The 42 supply block can kind of bite you.
Yeah.
Roach Warren Evo. 4-minute spores. Yeah, your opening looks really clean. Sending in an Overlord. Okay. This thing. Okay. Well, I'll type this up for you. This is a pain in the ass, and it's something that is very popular. It's gonna be slightly weaker in the next patch because the Warp Prism is getting nerfed, but it should still be a thing. So ZVP section versus DT Prism. I want to compliment you on your opening build though. That was basically crisp and pristine. So versus DT Prism, you want to prioritize Lair, Overlord speed, Queen production, Queens on a hotkey to fight Prism, 3 roaches rallied to each spore in your worker line. So the procedure is going to look something like this. You have your lair, amazing. You see the Dark Shrine and the Twilight. Did you actually get a vision of that? Let me check. Yeah, you did. Good. So you want the spore kind of in the center of your worker line, just so it's a little bit more protected. It's like here. And then you click this hatchery, and then you rally 3 roaches to just go to the spore. And then the natural, you do the same thing. 3 roaches go to the spore and surround it. The main. 3 roaches go to the spore. And then your queens are going to be the main unit that deals with the prism. So that's an important step. And then another one is create a ring of vision around your base with overlords, with overlord speed. So this will tell you where the prism is and where your queen should be ready to fight. So if you look at your mini-map, you have this area covered with an overlord, great. Now you would fill the ring, 1 here, there, maybe 1 here, one at this plateau, and then one over here. So you just get a big ring and you know exactly where the prism is coming in. You would want to go up to like 6 queens with this. You do have the minerals for it. So you have your injecting queens, and you want to have probably, let's say, 6 to 9 queens, where 3 inject, rest chase the prism. Lings are really bad in this situation because DTs counter lings and Archons counter lings. So you want to be droning into a roach timing. That's usually the counter procedure where they're spending a ton of gas in DTs, Archons, Dark Shrine, none of which can be spent into Immortals, which is the main counter to the roach. Additionally, it's super common for Protoss to go for a 2 base all-in as a follow-up. So having 3 bases fully saturated of Roach Ravager production with +1 attack is a really good checkpoint of I'm saturating my bases and now I can produce a really strong army.
I also, there's a follow-up to this thing. It doesn't happen here, but it did happen to me in a couple of different games, where they follow this up with a lot of oracles, like 5 oracles just flying into my base.
Mm-hmm.
And I found that even if I have like 2 spores and the queen, it doesn't help. It just they can kill the spores, the queens, and the hatch before they run out of energy.
Mm-hmm. So this is another procedure I can type out for you. If you see versus mass oracle, oracles fly in, hold drones to a different base, 3 spores per mineral line.
Here, I really thought I was okay. I thought I was fine, and then apparently not.
Yeah, what are your upgrades? +1 attack. I think this could have been defended if you didn't make any mutas at all, and the defense of the DT was a bit cleaner, because you did lose quite a few workers. Let's see, 12. You did kill 9, but the tough part is, let's go back a little bit. If they ever break these rocks and control this location, you're pretty much dead. That's kind of a win condition against Zerg because you have units coming from different locations and you won't be able to gather your forces. So this map in particular, and you could say this overlaps a little bit with the Overlord ring around your base against DT. Creep functions in a similar way, where it gives you more vision and mobility around the outside of your base. So a good procedure is you look at your queen at the natural, the base is injected. Whenever it's time to inject again, when you go to that queen, inject, go over here to the rocks, lay a creep tumor, and then go back to the hatch. It's just a really quick addition of, I see my queen has more than enough energy to inject, so I'm going to inject, tumor, and then go back to the base, and that'll naturally fill out your vision a lot better. So imagine if you didn't lose the queen at the third, you could do a similar thing. Inject the third, lay a creep tumor, go back to the hatch. If you made 6 queens early on against the prism, you would have had 3 to spread creep. So I feel like this push, even with the drone damage that you took, which you didn't have to take if you had 3 roaches at each spore, you would have creep out here, and if you saw them going to attack you, you could follow the principle when the opponent is about to strike first. You could just crush them, probably, with a nice arc.
By moving and fighting on the high ground, though, not like going down.
It depends, because if you had a lot of warning of the attack, like if this Overlord saw the move out, you could break the rocks and then put some units up here, and then have some units down here, and have some units here. And when they come in, they're just destroyed, attacked from 3 different angles.
Is there a way for me to hold that ramp better? Because obviously, I think looking at it, I thought maybe just my Hydralisk then was too late. But I'm not sure how good Hydra is against it. Like not Hydra, Lurker. How good Lurker is against this army.
Lurker's really good. So I think you can win this fight, actually, if we just take it from here. So you want to do the same thing that we did in the last replay, which is box your army in half and then put some to the side. You notice you have all your army on the right side of your natural. Back your army up and try and make a ring at the top of your ramp. I'll take the Protoss and then go in. I think you can win this. It's going to be having that pre-split at the top of the ramp. So you're Iceman. I'm Giuseppe. You ready?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, I have my army. Prism. What's this? Units. Okay. They will attack you. See?
Fuck me.
Yeah, it's a huge difference. So we'll say the main theme from your previous coaching session was your injects need to be better. You've improved on your injects. The main takeaway from this session is your concaves need to be better. So that'll be the primary focus, is understanding where and when the battle is going to be fought, creating that like pre-spread arc, so when the opponent comes in, they just take a terrible trade. And a lot of times you can defend with fewer units with high ground and a really good spread.
That was a massive difference.
Yeah. Well, it was one of the things that I got coached about when I was doing ZVZ in Heart of the Swarm. He was talking about how a lot of Roach versus Roach is just who is better at positioning. Because you can be behind in Roach count and have worse upgrades, but if you take the concave every single time, you can win almost every fight. ZVP functions the same way. If you're Roach Hydra based, you want to make sure you have like 2 clumps of your army, so when the enemy comes in, you get a really nice full spread where all your army is firing at once.
Okay.
Cool.
Do we have time for another one?
We could do one more.
Okay.
I mean, we're a little bit over, but it's cool.
We can. This is one is ZVT. It's late game, so we can rush through like the start.
Mm-hmm.
It's labeled as late game loss after mid game advantage.
Now, some people are asking how the replay takeover thing happens. You have to have someone with you to take over the opponent. You can't do it on your own. But it's a feature that was added with Legacy of the Void, which has some value in, like, if you get disconnected, you can do that with a player in a custom game.
Yeah, they did that for tournaments after some horrible PR.
Yeah, but you can do it also like we're doing here for practice purposes. And it doesn't have to be a coach-student thing. It can be like if you have a friend and you're practicing a matchup and you want to work on an engagement, it saves you a lot of time and not having to like restart the game from the beginning if you want to work on your micro or something.
I understand. I wish they gave the option to do it with an AI.
Yeah.
But I understand why not. It's almost impossible to code from that position.
Mm-hmm. Okay, third hatch. Queens. Evas. Oh, queens of the third. Inject. Alright, I mean that's way better than last time.
Yeah.
It can be a little bit better, but it's big improvement. So the drop is coming. You have the lings and the queens. Cool. What are you making here? More lings? You could make drones there, but I think if you're attacking, it's fine. Because now you have enough to attack and to defend. So this would be a great time to drop the 4th on the macro hatch. That's a general, like, knee-jerk reaction you can make, which is, put it in the notes, CVT. If Terran suddenly loses, drops Hellbats, harass, take 4th base. Like, super fast.
Say again?
As soon as they lose their drop group, drop the 4th base immediately. That's usually a big opening in their window of they no longer have a way to immediately shoot an expansion as it's being put down, and they need to focus on their defense because they just lost some army. So it seems like you are doing that. You probably could have taken it a bit earlier, but that's a good thing to memorize. And a macro hatch happens at the same time if you're going Ling Bane, which you are doing that. So your builds are good. You can go ham on the queens too. Like if you ever notice, I pulled my queens, I don't have queens at the bases, and I have minerals. Just make more queens. It scales really well into the ultra transition.
Mm.
So let's look at units. You have a big worker lead. Your Ling spread and Overlord spread is great. You can see anything moving out. Place a priority on creeping out in front of the 4th. So kind of like when you walk the queen to the 3rd base to be ready to inject. Same thing with the 4th base. Walk over to it, inject in the creep tumor. You are doing that. Great.
Everything a bit too slow though.
Yeah, well, it's way better than last session.
Yeah.
Another thing to add in, this is all matchups, but I'll put it in the ZVT. When 4th base finishes, if safe, transfer 8 workers. Because your main is going to be mining out by that time, and you're losing efficiency on your drone count. So you do have a worker advantage, but, oh, you are doing that. Damn, dude. It's a good game for you. Infestation pit. You have a spore at the natural. I would put a spore in the main if you're skipping Spire. And a spore. Oh, you have one at the 3rd. The spore at the 3rd. This is kind of a small detail. I would put it here instead. This center area, if they were to try and drop in this area, you can just kill it with queens. So the spore over there is going to be helping for when they use the dead space to fly in this area. And then at the 4th base, the spore goes here in the upper right corner to protect the dead space again. That's kind of the principle you think about with spores, is queens can help fight air in the ground areas, and spores are going to help in the dead space areas. So here it would be lower left corner for Liberator and drop coming in from this dead space. In the main, it would be upper right corner for this dead space. 3rd base directly above for dead space, and then 4th upper right.
Cool.
A bunch of lings. Yeah, it's a way of having tempo and stuff. It's not a super efficient trade, but you're ahead, so that's a way of giving the opponent a bad time. The opponent's taking 2-2, your hive is on the way. You have 2-2. You see an attack moving out. Yeah, having a bunch of creep pushed forward in front of your 4th base. If you had creep up to here, the engagement you take in this situation is you hide some lings right here, and then when they come, you just smash them. So this is another one of those, when the opponent is about to strike first, they expect the engagement to be here, at the edge of your creep, and they gradually siege your 4th base. So as soon as they get here, like this army is incredibly vulnerable right now. If all of your lings were on top of this, you would win the game. But if they get all their mines grouped up, they're going to get a lot of damage in.
Mines are the bane of my existence. I die.
Yeah, they're one of the best comeback units in the game. Mines are really bad against counterattacks though. So a lot of my games on stream recently, like there was an opponent did a huge marine mine all in, 2 base all in against me, and all the mines were sieged here, and they had a bunch of marines, and they're trying to bait me into it. I just did 2 counterattacks. As they took a third, I ran some Lingbane into the third, and some Lingbane into the natural, and they were just dead. They couldn't also defend with the mines. Ultra Cavern.
I've been trying very hard, like, the patience in ZVT is such an important element, and it's, I think, one of the toughest parts of this matchup. You have to be so patient.
Yeah. I think being patient, it helps if you have a goal for how to spend that time. So focusing on spreading creep when you're ahead is really good. It's a way of extending your advantage rather than worrying about throwing it.
That even hurt to watch.
Yeah.
Now,
Wow. The splitting your army into 2 groups will help you against banelings a lot too. So the same thing we worked on with roaches, having your Lingbane put into 2 spots. So for your 4th base, location 1, location 2. Additionally, on this map, you can break these rocks here, and then that gives you a location 3. And if you attack from 3 sides, it's just amazing for Zerg. You're making ultras, you have 3/3 on the way. But let's look at the units lost tab. I know it's gonna be sad. Oh, yep. It's about 1600 resource versus 1k or 10k. So you have ultras, units, 56 drones. Anytime you drop below like 67, you would want to redrone that if you can. They're killing all of your bases, so it's kind of a bummer. ZVT is very snowbally, where if you make a couple mistakes, then you kind of just run out of money. Cool. This is a spot where, oh, I have the worker lead, but don't forget about mules. You're not actually ahead.
Yeah, I think I noticed. This is one of those, like, this is the kind of loss that gets me in a funk, because it's like, I had an advantage, I messed it up.
Yeah.
It's so frustrating.
Yep.
Especially against mines, where I feel like there's no... It places so much more of the onus on me than him.
Well, I mean, there are a lot of ways for Terran to mess up as well. One thing that is a good mental thing is if you get ahead in the Lingbane stage and the opponent is on low econ bio, Ultra is a win condition if you can defend to that and take fights on creep. So focusing on creep spread and tech will put you in a pretty good spot. Silly loss. But then every loss is a throw, as we all know. And we are very sad to know. Widow Mines are the ultimate comeback unit for Terran. Beware.
Yep.
Cool. So I'll send you notes. And did you get the new replay pack?
And I don't think, it's 17, I think, is my latest.
Okay, yeah, it's up to 20 now, so
I'll... 90?
We'll put that in the email reply as well. So there's replay pack. Cool. Any final questions, thoughts?
I'm assuming I'm gonna work on the concave and what's it called? Army groups, basically, is my homework.
Yep. That's good. Well, it's great working with you. I'm glad to see that you've improved a lot from our last session, and I look forward to seeing the next one.
As am I. Thank you very much.
Cool.
Swarm them.
Indeed.
Later.